Hi guys, welcome to episode 1 of Made with ADHD podcast. Today I'm joined with Dr. Fiez. How are you, Fiez?
I'm very good, Gary. Very excited to be here. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you very much. Very good. We'll get straight into this.
Yeah,
because this is a conversation that we've touched on before.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to actually have the opportunity to sort of revisit it.
Yes.
And go back into your past and what living with ADHD is actually like for yourself.
Yeah.
If we go right back to the beginning, Wise, as a child, what was that like for you growing up?
So I had a happy childhood. I loved my childhood. Probably a little bit at the expense of my family because I kept running off and going missing. And that was, I now know, quite textbook ADHD. But other than that, it was a great childhood. Every family's dysfunctional, so obviously there's issues there. But I distinctly remember, probably from birth till about 4, either running off when I had the opportunity to, because I just had this sense of euphoria. If ever there was a space, I couldn't keep still. And then as I got older, just stories of my parents, my uncles, aunties, telling me the things that they had to do to stop me, for instance, hanging out the window or running down towards the motorway or jumping out of my cot when I wasn't even 1 year old, like odd things like that, which I just thought, oh, I'm just hyperactive. And then started primary school. And then I sort of, I guess, became more academically minded. And then I guess that would have masked any obvious signs of ADHD.
So you say about being more academically minded.
Yeah.
Did you struggle at all in primary school, like growing up?
Generally speaking, no. I went to a good primary school. My sister was at the primary school. She's 3.5 years older than me. And it was quite a small primary school. So the teachers paid quite a lot of attention to the students. Generally speaking, no. But I've always thought of myself as, before my diagnosis, inconsistently consistent. So there'd be some subjects that I'd instinctively be really good at and happen to be top of the class, and it would just be effortless. And other subjects where I was at the bottom of the class and I was too slow, or I would just not get the instructions straight away.
Okay.
But because I guess overall I was good, and in the areas that I struggled, my mum and dad and school like pushed me to try and be better.
Okay.
I got there, and then that was it really. It was just a case of, like I always used to think to myself, why can't I be good in all subjects? Why is it only some and others? And obviously as a kid, you can't really do much with those thoughts.
Well, the ones you were good at,
yeah.
Was you interested in those? Did they stand out more than others?
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, all kids like play, all kids like anything creative. And then specifically things like, I was quite good at like in primary school, you have like writing and reading and English. So I was always sort of at the top when it came to reading books, when it came to reading out loud to the class, when it came to writing, when it came to writing essays and compositions.
Yeah.
And that was, I guess I enjoyed it, but more because it just felt like that was at my present state. Like my mind was in that creative set, so I could just flow. Yeah. And then in other subjects, less so basically. But for instance, I've always liked science, and didn't really get taught much science at primary school. But my parents bought my sister and I some encyclopedias for children, which was more so for my sister. And then I found them, and I just was like a bookworm. And then I remember there were a few times I told some of the teachers about the things that I'd learned, or I remember giving an answer. Or writing an essay, and I remember the teacher wrote something like, oh, that's absurd. That isn't true. And it was about wildlife, and it was something called a liger, which is when a lion and a tiger mate and they produce offspring, which is infertile.
Okay.
So, and because it was in a book, obviously,
Yeah.
I literally soaked up information.
Yeah.
And so in the wildlife composition, I wrote that down. And I remember distinctly feeling like when she said that, I was like, and there was no around it. It's not like I said to her, oh, but I'm telling the truth. It was just like, she kind of like marked me down on that. And I was quite disappointed and a bit hurt. And I was like, but I'm not lying. Like, that's what it said. But,
The injustice kicked in.
yeah. And I was maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I don't know what to do about that. So I just left it. But she was also the same teacher that, weirdly, looking at my school reports, looking at my sisters and my school reports, she was more focused and generally more a good student, a good pupil than I was.
Right.
But that same teacher for both of our reports, when she was in her year, then I was in her year later. Mrs. Morris, God rest her soul, I'm sure she's wherever she is now. She said, roughly like for both of us, good potential, often very good, but either must sit still or must stop chatting. And there was one bit that I think was identical for my sisters and mine. Said, no, and mine was a bit worse. Like, I think for my sister, she said, she's rather chatty.
Yeah.
And then for me, it was like, Fiez would do better if you just stopped talking.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, fine. Again, you don't think anything of it. As a kid, you don't really care. So
Yeah. And then around that time, you was at primary school. So coming out of primary school, going into sort of secondary school,
Yeah.
what was that like in life at home as well?
that was a very interesting time.
I mean, so what were we, 10, 11 years old?
Yeah, so 10, 11, 12 years old. So that's like 1990, 91, 92. So my primary school, it was a prep school that my parents decided to send me and my sister to. It was quite competitive, quite academic minded, and that's something that my parents had in unison about their children. They wanted them to have the best education and start possible.
Yeah.
That's what they both felt passionate about. And so my primary school was very focused on the 11 plus and similar exams. So 11 plus is like grammar schools plus exams for independent schools, etc.
Right.
So it was a thing where when you're 11, you sat the exams and you could choose to sit extra. So did the 11 plus, did the entrance exams for like 4 other schools, got into past the 11 plus and got into all the others, and surprisingly got into one which was seen as the hardest to get into. And there was absolutely zero expectation of me ever getting a place, but they said, "Oh, I should just do it as an experience," and that's how I took it. Okay. So I managed to get that place,
right?
And it was on a bursary as well. So luckily, it meant my parents paid zero,
right,
to go to somewhere that was like thousands of pounds.
Okay,
which I didn't appreciate at the time.
Yeah.
So on that side, and being in zone 4 in Redbridge and the school was in zone 1, just the idea of going on the tube, that was more exciting to me than going to school. So that was a good thing. That was really exciting. I got a lot of independence, but it was mixed with, I guess, 2 things that I remember distinctly. The first being how different and difficult this school was to my primary school, because everyone was just top of the class.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay, fine. I used to be top of the class, but I'm not anymore. And sort of really it took me a few years to really get my head down. And then I guess the other thing was away from school, but more so impacts like your general life. At primary school, I realized I was gay.
Okay.
And that's something I chose not to tell anyone, but I remember my dad realizing that I was quite withdrawn, and he asked me what the problem was one day, and I didn't want to say. And then I told him, because he kept pestering.
At what age?
I was about 9, I think. Yes, I was 9. So long story short, they sent me to a child psychologist, which was a bit embarrassing because my sister was in front, and the psychologist was like, "Oh, your parents think you might be gay." And my sister was like, and I was like, "Fuck, this is exactly what I need." I was like so embarrassing. was like, great. And then I went there with my mum, just like me and her. I think my mum sat behind this. I'm pretty sure they said, your mum's in the other room. And it was behind a mirror. She said, and she won't be here. But in my head, I'm thinking, I now know, she should probably see and hear everything, but that's just what they told me, which is fine. And they talked about sort of, I guess, me being bullied at school, the difficulties I had with family, and then they mentioned being gay, and I just sort of, I remember dismissing it, and then I remember the psychologist then dismissing it as well, and then me feeling that was an accomplishment because I just wanted to not have anyone on the subject about that.
Yeah. Was it almost a case that they were trying to sort of say that you wasn't?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was 9. This was 1989. I think weirdly, it was only 1979 that the World Health Organization declassified being gay as a mental health illness.
Wow. So
10 years later, a 9-year-old kid, like they weren't really that advanced in children knowing that they're gay. And he basically said, it's probably just a phase or something like that, because I kind of described why I think I might be. And then, that was never spoken about again. And then at the end of those sessions, I remember thinking, okay, if this, because obviously that age, I just didn't want all the heat. So then I was like, well, if that's the case, and my parents are like, okay, so you're not gay, but also you can't be gay. I remembered that I had to keep my mouth shut. And that was about 9. So then going into secondary school, it was a case of having the difficulty of everyone being clever. Also I was probably, I guess I was quite quickly bullied as well. Not by everyone, but just by a significant number where you have your pecking order in school. It's kind of like Lord of the Flies, unfortunately. And then lastly, I sort of started secondary school realizing that, well, I am gay. I can't do anything about it. What am I supposed to do? So it was just survival mode, really. It was just, I remember thinking, okay, I know I'm definitely gay. That's never going to change. My parents don't want to accept me for that. I'll have to, and in my head at sort of that age, starting secondary school, I remember thinking, how can I survive this? I'll have to wait till I'm an adult and reach adulthood. And then once I'm an adult and I'm living on my own, then I'll tell my parents. And then that way, if they disown me, as long as I've got my own job, then it's fine. And
you was thinking that at 9, 10 years old?
Yeah. So not at 9, 10 years old, but I guess by the time I started secondary school, those thoughts were starting to cement.
Wow.
Because I guess after years of thinking about it and then realizing, as you get older and hormones and, feeling sexual feelings, I remember thinking, well, people at school are asking me if I'm gay. That's like if you go to an all boys school, it's just like a term of cuss. Oh, are you gay? This and gay, faggot, this, that, the other. And so most people, if someone's asking if they're gay, they'd obviously say no, this. And I distinctly remember just not answering because I didn't want to lie. And of course, if you don't answer, you might as well just call yourself being gay.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuck a little bit. And people, sometimes will say like, why didn't you say anything? And I just ignored it. So yeah, beginning secondary school, lots of positives, mainly the fact that I was independent, I had a free travel card. And then the downside was, okay, school's kind of hell. And it was pretty much hell for most of my time there. And so luckily I used that negative energy and I eventually focused it during my GCSEs into getting a way out. So not the normal thing that I guess an 11-year-old should think about. And if I had children, I'd be so like heartbroken if they started secondary school having to hide those things as well.
Yeah.
And somehow I did it like a lot of high functioning people do. And so it was an interesting start, completely different as an example to my sister's experience in secondary school. She was very popular. She was, played in all the sports. Always like had lots of friends. Always talking about how amazing school is, as older sisters do. And with me, it was completely different. So yeah.
But from such a young age, you've had to sort of suppress and hide these emotions.
Yeah.
At that age, going through all of that, realising that you're gay, going to an all-boys school, having the pressures of wanting to do well for your parents because of the school that you was at as well.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that make you feel now? Like looking back, all that pressure at that vulnerable age when you should be enjoying yourself and sort of like doing what kids do. You're thinking about your adulthood and ways that you could be self-sustainable, so you don't have to rely on your parents.
Yeah.
Because of who you are.
Yeah. And it's not anything I blame my parents for, because they tried their best. I mean, my dad was homophobic, which I don't excuse, but that's a fact. Like, obviously he can't change how he is. He's not now, after God knows how many years, but so I don't blame my parents one bit. And I never resented them for that. I just remember thinking, okay, if that's their choice, I have to look after myself. And looking back now, as you asked me, that's when I started to disconnect in a huge way from my family, but in a way that was invisible to them and almost invisible to me. So I would say what I needed to say, go through emotions, and I'd be present, but there was always that part of me that was either looking over my shoulder or scared or worried, or, I had flashes of the future, knowing like, this is all going to end soon. Like, you'll have happy moments with your mum. I love my mum dearly, with your family, with my sister, with cousins. And then all realizing this is going to end soon. It's not going to be forever.
Yeah.
And so that fucks you up as an adult, let alone a kid.
Yeah.
So I sort of had that side. So you kind of like split in two a little bit.
Yeah.
But I never lost my faith in that. I don't know how I did it. And the older I get, the more, I didn't really see it I just saw it as something that I had to do when I was younger. Then school, because I was so go.
Yeah. And
now looking back, I'm like, okay, wow, that's actually, if I had a kid and they went through that, I'd be heartbroken. It's really I'm sad that I had to go through that, like really, really sad, but I'm okay about it. But it really makes me think, shit, I fucking managed to survive that. Fucking hell, I should get an A star just for that.
Yeah,
basically.
100%.
So
100%. Yeah. Based on the fact that you've got ADHD and how we feel, we feel things so much more intensely than, other people do without it.
Yeah.
It's to go through what you've been through.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't imagine. Honestly, I really couldn't imagine. That's something. That really is something. Coming out of secondary school, like your exams and that. I mean, you mentioned that you had sort of private education as well.
Yeah.
How did you do with your exams?
So years 1, 2, and 3, and started to get better during GCSEs. I was just again inconsistently consistent. I'd either be really good in some subjects, and other subjects I was always bottom of the class. Right. But also I remember to the point where in junior school, which is the first 2 years of that secondary school, the junior school headmaster and school reports, which my parents always took seriously, but then my dad took to the next level when it came to secondary school, because he was a bit strict, which is good, but a bit psycho as well. So he'd analyze the school reports, and he'd always tell me, there'd be a warning that these reports better be good. And then some of the reports came, and I thought, I wasn't really disappointed by them. I was like, okay, fine. If they're saying I'm good in stuff and not good in other stuff, well, okay, that's true. And then so there was reports from all the teachers of the subjects, and then the report from the junior headmaster, who mentioned something which I read, which I remember thinking, oh, that's a bit of a shame. I didn't think anything of it, but then when my dad read it, like he asked me to come and sit with him, and he either asked me to read it out or he read it out, and the junior school headmaster said something along the lines of, Fiez has potential, but it's a bit something like it's a bit concerning, or it does at the moment his performance now. It does slightly question him being awarded a bursary,
right?
Something like that.
Okay.
Now that's very, very, in plain black and white. That's very clear what my teacher's trying to say. So any adult completely understands that.
Yep.
And my dad, my dad was like, he must have been like, okay, he has ADHD, so his RSD is probably off the scale. He must have been like he was furious, but not at the teacher. He was like, and I think he felt shame, was like, what this is, and he read it out and he said, do you know what that sentence means? That he explained that basically I'm not putting my socks up, and that it's a disgrace. I must do better. Yeah. And I just sat there like looking sad. I just didn't know what to do. So that was the first year. And second year was like, again, up and down, and sort of my dad was still like giving me heat. Third year, pretty much the same. And then GCSE years, I think after 3 years of survival mode and having time to think about my future more, when I started GCSEs, I remember it's a bit random. I was having a haircut in Ilford in my local barber's. It was summer of '94, and I was just reading The Sun, and something. So they were talking about a new a new grade called A Star, which started in 1994, and as normal, like in all the newspapers, it would have, like every time they'd publish the GCSE results, they'd have, that person from that place that got 10 A's and so from that school got, like across the country. Right. And so then there's this big thing about, this new grade, and so got, was the first or only person to get A Stars across all of it. And by that age, I was ambitious. I was in a very competitive school. My parents were very education orientated. My sister, less than me, but overall she was, I guess, seemed to have a better experience generally overall in school than I did. Yeah. So I remember looking at that, and with the homophobia and with everything else, so looking at that, and I was like, I'm going to have that. I'm going to have me some of that. I'm going to get 10 A Stars. I didn't get 10 A Stars, but that was my mindset. Right. And I was like, and I became hyper-focused. So then from fourth year...
what was the drive behind that? Sorry.
The drive behind that was being in a school that was very competitive and academically orientated, combined with my parents being quite education orientated, and combined with my sister doing quite well at school, and me feeling, I guess, like I was quite aware of letting people down or being told I was not good enough. But it was more weirdly a sense of, it was more like as soon as I sort of thought about getting 10 A Stars, like it's quite ADHD to have, I think they call it a maladaptive daydreaming, where you have daydreaming, but it's almost a bit like you get flights of fancy. And in my head, I was just like, that's what I'm going to do. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I was like 14. And so the drive was basically those things, like family life, school life, and then my, at that point, ability to be like, you know what, I can do this. And it was also like, I wanted to be proud of something. I wanted to compete with myself. I wanted to be at the top, and people are like, fuck, like he's at the top, he's done it. But more so, it was like, it was my way of anything negative that was going on in my life at the time. I just changed it and just thought, it doesn't matter if you're going through shit now, it's going to be better later. So just keep your head down and put all your focus into study, into coursework, into everything you can. So yeah, I did that the next 2 years. And then in the mocks, which was January 96, I got 1 A star, 1 A, 3 Bs, 2 Cs, 3 Ds, basically, which was shit. And then,
You say that was shit?
yeah,
We won't talk about mine then.
that's just my standards for myself,
Yeah.
and my school standards for everyone there, and my parents' standards.
Yeah, of course.
And it was like, and I was like, and I remember thinking, oh, it's not quite 10 A stars, is it? So,
But did you not feel a sense of achievement in those results at all?
for the ones I got an A star and A in, yeah. For the Bs, I was like, okay, I can do better. C's and D's, I was like, nah.
Right.
I'd zero. I was like, you know, and that's kind of the mindset of every pupil in my school.
Right.
So I was like, nah, that's shit. And I remember the headmaster would speak to all the people, do the mocks, like have a little like a 5-minute sort of interview, and then he looked back and said, oh, and he didn't really know what to say. He said, oh, it's quite a mixed bag there. I like that people normally either got like C's and D's and B's or A's, but not like the whole range. Yeah. So he said, oh, hopefully, there's room for improvement. Anyway, and so after that obviously gave me another kick up the arse. I was like, right, I've got 5-6 months to do this. And then I remember it being Easter, and then sort of had that focus of, right, I've got to do this in terms of being ready, in terms of like knowing all my knowledge, in terms of being on top of everything. And during these holidays, I remember looking at all my subjects, thinking about what I need to know, and then realizing, because I knew the exams were like May, June time. And then there was this sense of me, so I was like, hang on, May, June time, that's like 2 or 3 months away. And I had the sense of like, fuck. And I went into sheer panic.
Yeah.
And then from Easter onwards, it was just, I slaved my guts out. I did everything. So it was hyper focused continually.
Yeah.
And continually until my last exam, basically. Okay. And subjects that I weren't good at, I never gave up. I tried my best. So French and history, I always got D's. At one point, the history teacher got angry at me because I answered a question in the mocks that they didn't even talk, that he didn't even teach. But I just thought, I no offense to him, but he was a really bad history teacher. He didn't inspire me. So I remember just having all my textbooks and just like reading and learning and remembering and writing notes and just doing it again and again, like non-stop. And then did my GCSEs right. I've done the best I can. And then got the results, and it wasn't 10 A stars, but overall it was pretty good. It was one of the best in the school.
Oh, wow.
So went from, in my mocks, 1 A star, B's, C's, D's, to getting 3 A stars, 6 A's and 1 B. And the A's in maths, which I was very touch and go with, but my parents gave me private education, and French and history, getting an A after getting D's. Yeah. And I remember even some of the students, because they knew I was shit in history, knew I was shit in French, they were almost like, how the fuck did you get an A?
Yeah.
Like what the fuck? And almost a little bit arrogant about how come he got an A and this person who should have got an A star because he's amazing at French only got an A as well. Yeah. And I was like, fuck you. I fucking did it. Yeah. And yeah, that was like, I was so fucking elated. Yeah. And I was like, I fucking did it. Yeah. I fucking did it. Yeah. And then it was just like, well, now you've got good GCSEs. When you apply to uni, that's what they look at. So it was just like, I'm doing this. I'm actually fucking doing this. Yeah. Yeah.
So at this point now, then you're finding a rhythm into sort of like achieving what the mind is sort of like presenting. Yeah. So moving on from that and getting these GCSEs, where did that take you into your sort of like teenage years?
So it gave me this. It gave me a confidence that I never had before, because with my school, it was so focused on like whoever did well, even if they were nerdy, unpopular, or called gay, or called stupid, or just people hated them because they were just weird. generally speaking, if someone wasn't, got an AOA star and everything, they would just, there was that respect, or at least they were just like kind of maybe left alone, or just. And I remember like I remember it distinctively quietened a lot of the bullying voices.
Yeah.
Because they were just like, oh shit, you did better than me. So I was just like I was quietly confident, and then so focusing on A levels in biology, chemistry, maths. As everyone knows, A levels much harder than GCSEs. Yeah. That was like a real struggle. Managed to do well enough, but I remember thinking, God, this is fucking hard. But a lot more focused. So I was like, right, I've got GCSEs. It's not over yet. Like, I'm not going to get anywhere unless I get good A levels. So I can't take my foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And also around that time, weirdly, for a mixture of reasons, I still have it now, but I had a tremendous stammer, like a really bad stutter.
Okay.
So that was another thing that I got bullied about at school for. So public speaking, like people talking to me, like putting my hand up in class, to the point where like other boys would like say, because my name is Fiez, like Fiez, and just like take the piss out of me. So I remember like being petrified of public speaking, like literally petrified. At 13, there was like in English, we had to do a little talk on something, and we all had to stand up for 10 minutes. And they said it about 8 weeks in advance. And from the moment they said it, I was shitting myself every day. And so I did a review of a video coming to America, which was quite obscene, but quite funny. And I basically just played the video mostly and hardly spoke. And my teacher downgraded me for that. But then weirdly, around 16, my stammer started to significantly decrease. Okay. And not because I had any lessons or any elocution lessons, but it just managed to go. And then lastly, kind of as like a side note to that, again, when I was 13, there was something called the Beaufoy Speech Prize. Beaufoy was one of the houses that I was in, and he was one of the ex-pupils from like a long time ago. And so every year there's a speech prize where basically in the third year, every pupil had to say something from Shakespeare, basically.
Yep.
And then each of the forms had one person who won. And so it was Macbeth, and I decided to. It's weird. It's like I was nervous, but then something in my head. It was like the beginnings of when I had that feeling about GCSEs. Something in my head was like, "Fuck, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to fucking do it." So I rehearsed it, and I memorized it. So I remember standing up. And that was one of the first times like I remember using my photographic memory, or having a photographic memory. I was using a hyperfocus. I was focused on that. I was the only student who stood up without the sheet in front of them. Yeah. And saying it to the class, and bearing in mind that was against the backdrop of someone who had a reputation for not being able to speak. So when I stood up, everyone was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be fun. He's going to be stuttering all over the place. And because I was like in acting or performing mode, which, as I'm sure you know, people who do stutter, when they do that, they don't. And then, I was just giving it all like to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it's nobler in the mind, just of the things, whatever it was. And then
still no.
Yeah, I mean, part of it. So, and then at the end, everyone was like cheering, and so I got top of the class for the having always been bottom of the class when it came to public speaking. And then remember on the assembly the next term, sort of because they gave people a book token, so my name was called out. And again, remember we were like, him, Fiez, speech prize, what the fuck? How did he get speech prize? He can't speak. So after GCSEs, more confident, but knew that the game wasn't over. Had to keep my foot on the gas, and then focus on trying to get to uni, and that was also around the time I discovered gay bars, gay clubs.
Right.
So that was like my first sort of foray into like the grown up world, or like, you know, what people do when they, you know, leave school, like go to bars, clubs, but like my family aren't like a bar or pub sort of family, like a Muslim, got a Muslim family. So around that time, started going to like gay bars on my own. So yeah, it was a mixture of things. Yeah.
So let's talk about that then. I mean, obviously you've sort of stepped out now into this adult world, and up until this point, you've done everything that you've achieved, right, against the odds.
Yeah.
Let's face it. I mean, people with ADHD to go through what you've gone through and achieve what you've achieved is massive.
Thank you. That's really kind of you to say.
And then now, sort of like finding your feet and going out into the real world. What was that like? I mean, let's talk about some of the choices.
So, yeah, really interesting that. I remember always, by that point, I was very like hyper focused on wanting to do well and didn't let anything in my life get in the way of my dream of doing as well as I could in exams. And so after GCSEs, that was the first time in my life that I had a summer where I didn't have to think about the next year. Obviously, I started A-levels, but didn't really have much to do apart from just start it like in September. So for me, that summer was amazing. It was the summer of '96. Spice Girls came out. I loved it. And then I was like, fuck it. Because, by that time, raging hormone, 16, I was like, I want to, explore what gay life is like.
Right.
So I remember getting Time Out magazine and then looking at the listings of like bars and stuff and sort of choosing which one. And so, yeah, so like I chose one to go to, which was near King's Cross or something. And then another one that was off Oxford, like on Wardour Street. And it was purely just like I was curious, like you want to find yourself, and like all teenagers, hormones, you're obviously sexual. So I had zero experience with sex, but wanted to obviously just, be in that environment. And so, yeah, first bar I went to, it was empty. But it was a bit odd. It was kind of like a fetish bar. And I'm 16. Anyway, there were these two blokes that walked in. They were skinheads, and then they walked in. Then I walked in, and then it was empty. And then as they walked out again, they saw me, and they left. And I remember just like being like, "Wow, those are gay people," and getting like, I guess, turned on. Anyway, so then I was like, "Oh, it's empty here. What do I do?" And then I remember that they had a copy of this magazine called Boys Magazine, which was a free gay weekly paper about this, that, and the other. And I was curious. So, and I asked them, I think I either asked them if I could have a copy, or they asked me if I wanted a lift or somewhere. I don't remember how it comes. Like it started off quite innocent, and then I spoke to them, and then I told them, then I told them what happened. So on that day when things, I didn't have a great relationship with my dad, which got worse when my sister went to uni, and I felt I was bullied a lot of the time by him, and then I remember just thinking, fuck it, like, having the pressure of staying on top of things and family, like having a go, etc., and being gay. And I was like, and I remember just, I knew I could never run away because I needed to do my exams. But I remember just one day thinking, fuck it, I'm going to do it. So I basically left the house in the daytime. It's not a big deal, but it was a big deal for me to do that without telling my parents, as in, oh, I'm going to the library, or I'm going to see so and such. I'll be back by 8 p.m. This was before mobile phones. Yeah. For me to just, while my parents were in the kitchen living room, thinking I was upstairs, for me to then just go out the front door, shut it, and then bomb it to the station. Yeah. It sounds like quite trivial, but it was a huge thing. It was a huge statement, and something that my parents would have been very, very upset and disturbed about, and very crying, because the fact that I didn't tell them I was going and I just vanished, that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to fuck off. And I think I wrote a little note for my mum or something. Anyway, fast forward to that, met these guys in this place near King's Cross, and then I just spoke to them. It was just like innocent conversation to start with, and I think they said, oh yeah, sure, you can have this magazine. I don't know what you're doing, and they asked me like what I was doing, and then I said, well, actually, this is what happened. So I told them the whole story. I told them what I just told you, and I remember they said, I remember they were quite concerned about me, and they said, "Look, go home," and I said, like, how much I love my mum, and they was like, go home and tell your mum you're okay, and yeah, I know things are tough, but that's what you should do. I understand obviously why you've done this. And they said, but you have to be careful. It's lucky that you've met us, because other guys, it's dangerous for you. Like, you have to be careful.
Wow.
Other guys, they didn't say it in so many words, but they kind of like, they were implying could be taken advantage of, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I remember in that moment, it was weird. It was like, it was meant to be. It was just like, okay, so I didn't experience a gay bar. I was empty, but just meeting those two people who said, actually, you should go home, and being able to offload to gay men for the first time in my life in a way that I'd never been to before was amazing. So they asked me if I wanted a lift to the station. I was like, no. And then so I started walking down, and then as they drove past, they slowed down and they asked me again, do you want to lift to the station? I was so embarrassed that they asked me, because I was like, shit, two gay men asked me in front of everyone. So I remember going in the car, and they dropped me to the station. It was fine. But when I got back up, I remember thinking, shit, this is like a 3-door car. It didn't have the seats there. And in my head, I was thinking, fuck. What the fuck? I'm going to get kidnapped. I'm going to get raped. I'm like, fuck. And then it was fine. I didn't do it, obviously. But yeah, so I think that like some guardian angel was looking out for me. Went home. Mum was crying. Dad was miserable as hell and really pissed off and didn't really want to speak to me, but said something like, oh, I'd never do that again. And so, yeah, that was when I was 16, just before my GCSE finals. And then after that, after my GCSEs, didn't go to that place again, but went somewhere which was a bit more perhaps mainstream and sort of central, and sounded like, like a fun place to experience lots of different types of like maybe music and drinks and, and that kind of stuff. So, and that was called Freedom Bar. And I remember sort of going on like one Saturday, and I saw it, and I was the other place was like dead quiet. There was no one around. Whereas this place, it was on, off Oxford Street. Everyone was walking past, and I was really conscious, extremely conscious then of being seen anywhere near that was gay, or anyone seeing me walking into somewhere that was gay. Okay. So I'm walking past, and I just didn't have the guts to do it. Like, I didn't have the guts to walk in. So I just walked past, and I was like, okay, fine. So I kind of lingered, and then I walked back, and I kept doing that back and forth. Like, I walked back and I couldn't go in, and then I walked the other way, couldn't go in. And I kept doing it. And in my head, I was like, fuck it, Fiez. If you're not doing it this time, you're just going to fucking go home. So I'm walking past, and then I had the same feeling of like, oh, fuck, I can't do this. And it's like all I can remember is it was almost like out of my control. I just stopped, and I turned in, and I opened the door. Even though I was like, I can't do this, something inside me just made me do it. So I opened, went in, and then I went to the middle of the bar. There was a chair and table, and I sat there. And I just sat like looking up this, like smiling at the barman, and the barman was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." And obviously he was a bit clueless. It was obvious I was a bit clueless. So he said, "So would you like to eat or drink?" And I said, "Oh, I could have an orange juice, please." So he gave me an orange juice, and I paid for orange juice. So that was it. I was there for like 15 minutes, and it was just a nice bar with people chatting, and that was my first experience of that. And then, of course, my A-levels started, and by that point, I'd started to go to this particular bar a lot. Not the bar that I went to, but another one. They'd play music videos, and I was a big fan of MTV and Top of the Pops. And then as soon as my A-level started, I had to get my head down. And I remember very quickly realizing I can't do that anymore. I can't go to gay, not because people would find me out, but I just thought I need to concentrate on studies. I just won't have the ability to concentrate. My fear was if I went to bars, like my head wouldn't be where I'm supposed to be at. Yeah. And it was almost like I either had to work or have fun. I can't do both. Yeah. And so that's what I did. And so got me to university. And then that pattern repeated in uni where during term time, I find it difficult to go clubbing. Yeah. Because I have to focus on everything. and I now know, looking back, one of the difficulties I have is having a work and play balance. Like, I'm all or nothing. I find it very difficult to do both. And that's, I guess, one of my ADHD traits, which I still have now. But I do believe there's ways of improving that.
So at what point did you like revisit telling your parents that you was gay? Because obviously you've done it at a young age.
Yeah.
And then you sort of like lived with it. At what age did you revisit that? Whereabouts were you?
So I started dental school in 98. And so my goal was, okay, after sort of leaving secondary school, my school wanted me to do medicine. My parents wanted me to do medicine. And yeah, obviously it's a great degree. And it's, you know, I'd be very lucky to have it and humble to have it. And lots of boys sort of enter to do medicine. But like, I was like, well, hang on, what do I want to do? And I wanted to like either be a journalist or something else, or scientist, something. And she was like, no, you shouldn't do that, or there isn't any money in that. And I was like, okay, fine. And I was conscious of, okay, fine, I need to get a job where I know I'm going to earn something because of the goal of being financially independent. So I could come out to my parents as you mentioned. So when you're applying for like sort of UCAS form, and you go around and you look at the different like sort of books in the careers section of different, there's like, you know, how to do medicine, how to do law, and then there's like how to do dentistry or something like that. So I picked that up, read through it, and I was like, oh, okay, dentistry. That, because it was on the same level as like on the science bit. It was like medicine, dentistry, veterinary science or something. So I was like, oh, dentistry, and I thought, oh, wow, I've never thought about that before. Never thought it was a career choice, but I've always loved going to the dentist. I've never been scared. So did work experience in a hospital, did work for medicine, did work experience at my family dental practice for a few days. And then sort of by the second or third day, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely doing this. So I was glad that I decided dentistry, because it was something that I identified with, and it wasn't something that I felt forced into doing by my school or my mum or dad. And at the same time, it kept them happy as well. So that was why I went into dentistry. And then it was a case of surviving dental school. Generally, it was all right, but again, not particularly gay friendly, like a lot of London medical and dental schools weren't, unfortunately. Or maybe still are, I'm not sure. So I remember thinking, okay, same issue where I was shunned by a lot of the students there, had to find friends outside uni, which in a way was a good thing, because I didn't rely on my pool of uni friends. I started to become more socially independent. Yeah. So then finished uni and started dentistry and was living at home. And then I knew I had to do it soon. And it was that feeling of, okay, time is coming now. Okay, you have to do it. But my plan was not to do it while I was living at home. It was to live out of home. Yeah. And then my dad, so I qualified 2003. And then I think 2004, while I was still living at home, he was talking about marriage, and there was a family friend. And he said, you know, what do you think of her? We think it would be a good idea. You should, we'd like you to get engaged to her, but obviously you're still studying, she's still studying. You're not going to be engaged now, but if both families meet and if you just promise each, like if you just promise yourselves or the parents of the family, it sounds a bit weird. I mean, it's an assisted marriage. It's not like a forced arranged marriage, people think, but it was more like, I guess, in Victorian times. So she was like, okay, if you say yes, that you are going to be with her, then obviously it's not going to be official. You have to finish your studies first, and then obviously you get engaged afterwards. But it's just to, sort of make sure you get in there. And I was like, oh, fuck, really? And I was like, so I was just like, And then he brought up the conversation again. And then I just had to say, look, I'm not interested. Because I don't fancy her. I don't like her. And he's like, oh, that's a shame. And I felt really bad about saying that because she's a really pretty girl. And in a parallel universe, I would have probably loved to marry her or chance to marry someone like that. But I obviously wasn't going to lie to someone else. So I had to say that, because that's the only, which I felt cruel about. It's the only thing that would stop my dad from sort of going on at me. And then that weekend I started looking at rental places. And then I managed to get, happened to get a job in hospital, which was in South London, which I could have still left. I could have still sort of gone from my home in Redbridge to go there, but I used that as an excuse for, which was a fair excuse as well, fair point. I used that as an excuse for moving out to somewhere near work.
Yeah.
So basically, all I knew was SE1.
Yeah.
Having lived in IG1, I knew Bermondsey was in SE1, but I knew others people lived there, but didn't know Bermondsey. Knew more like Borough and London Bridge. Found a flat in Bermondsey, and then within a few weeks, paid the deposit, etc. Got the place. So made sure I did that first.
Yeah. And
then tell my parents, I have to move out because of uni. And they were like sad to see me go, but they understood obviously. So, and then that was 2004. And then it was like, okay, now it's time for me to say it now. Like there's nothing stopping me. And so in 2005, when I was 25, June the 4th, 2005, which was a Saturday, I remember telling them. And then that was, like the day I finally, like there was no going back then.
Yeah.
And I told them, which was the proudest day of my life, really difficult for them. My mum was crying. My dad was like psycho about it. But they didn't abandon me and disown me, which is what I expected to happen. And so,
but all your life you've lived up to that point thinking that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it didn't. And because I knew it was going to be difficult, it's like I was the adult in that dynamic, and they were the children. Yeah. So they were like all over the place, and the only way I could be was stable and calm and collected, and kept repeating my message and saying, I'm not going to change. This isn't anything you've done wrong. And so obviously when on the day you come out, your parents are going to think a million things, and then it takes weeks, months to process stuff, and they're going to ask other questions. So it's a journey. It's not just one day, one conversation. Yeah. And I was in it for the long haul because I didn't want to be disowned. So I was prepared to face all the questions and prepared to face my dad's anger at me being gay and all the things he said about being gay. But they didn't disown me. So, which I was relieved about, but it was almost like I woke up the next day and it's like I had to pinch myself. I was like, shit, did I just tell them I'm gay? And there was almost a sense of like, fuck, why did I do that for? Almost like I wanted to go back because I'm so used to not telling them. Yeah. And it took me, basically, it takes years to undo those things. So it basically takes years to reconnect where you've disconnected. Yeah. And I didn't know that so much at the time, but it was a case of slowly, even though things were difficult and I had to like face their questions, I knew I was myself now. I wasn't two people. And that is the most, I feel, important thing in any individual's life, where they know that they are their authentic self and they can be their authentic self and they're not lying. Yeah. And so that it just gave me this peace of mind, this calm that I just had never had before. And then also, but realizing like I was still quite hesitant about stuff. And, but then I had a partner at the time, which they weren't interested in me speaking about. And so he was really understanding. But it was difficult, but it was a journey that I was in it for the long haul. So, and then, I was like, I remember being proud because I was like, they didn't disown me and I did it. Because up until then, I just assumed that was definitely going to happen. So it's kind of like, oh shit, so they've not done that. It still means I had to put the work in and I had to like face their questions. But yeah, so that was 2005. Yeah.
So all of that has been done without knowing you got ADHD.
Yes, exactly.
So as soon as you've stopped masking now, did we start to see things start to sort of sip through the cracks?
So I guess with that unmasking that you mentioned that a lot of people do, like in terms of like being my authentic self, in a way there was less pressure. So in a way that I guess any ADHD symptoms that I had, it sort of like lessened that. But with the process of unmasking that, I guess it generally unmasks everything. So I was still ambitious. I still did really well in postgraduate stuff, but still struggled. And then the biggest change that I had was about 2.5 years after I came out. My mum unfortunately suddenly passed away, and then that changed everything in my life. I was glad that before she died, she finally accepted my partner by saying one time when I said I was going to see him, I kept trying to make conversation, and my dad was interested, mum was interested, but then for the first time, my mum said, and pass on my regards to him. Royston seems like a nice person. And I was like, oh, fuck, did she just say that? Am I imagining that? Like, wow, where did that come from? And she, she was going through like personal turmoil, basically, and she was not in a great place. And and then she died weeks later. So I still feel very grateful she's my mum, and my sister and I are still very lucky that she was our mum. And I'm just, I'll forever be fucked off at the world that they took her so young. But at least I was like, well, she knew who I was, and she said, that's okay.
So emotionally, what did that do to you? What did that mean? Like losing your mum, because you've said a number of times that you love your mum. So obviously that's quite clear. Yeah. So and going through what you've been through, and then suddenly like having your mum accept you for who you were, and then her being taken from you. What did that mean to you?
That my world ended, basically, because all I thought was, what was the fucking point? What was the point? I love my dad and sister, but I've told them quite clearly that I certainly didn't love them when I was growing up, and I hold them responsible to that. Whether they agreed to it or not is irrelevant, but that's how I felt. And I felt the only person who had my back was my mum, because my dad is sort of this and me and mum were like that. And when she left, it created a huge, like, families either come together or they implode, and my family imploded. Everyone missed her. There was a big vacuum where that was created when she left. And it was so odd because I missed her. I wanted to continue her legacy, and I wanted to be like the best son I could be to her. And I ended up going into the vacuum that was created, and me being seen as the substitute. And that was just fucked up in so many ways, because I didn't mind doing that, but it came at a price where I couldn't really mourn, I couldn't breathe. And up until that point, my parents had zero interest in me telling family, which I hope my mum would have come around to at some point. But so with my mum gone, which was the main person who the main person who glued everyone together, with her gone, and with my mum's family and my dad not getting on and being at loggerheads, and my sister sort of going AWOL, and my dad sort of remarrying after a few months, which fucked my head up.
Wow.
I was like, what is the point? And I just remember disconnecting from life, really. I was like, why did you have to do that? And then I was like, all those years I put in hoping that I would, have my forever family again. And, all the things that you just, because I love my mum and I just wanted to have, share experiences with her. And when I was 27, when she died, she was 60. I was like, well, like up until that point, pretty much from secondary school, it was like, you're going to get disowned. Then you're not. And then you're looking forward to it. It's like the equivalent of, those cartoons with like Wile E. Coyote, where he runs off a cliff and he's after the whatever that thing is, that bird that goes beep beep. I can't remember what the word is, but that
Roadrunner.
Like Ostrich or Roadrunner or something. So he was always catching him. It was never working. And then the moments where he'd be like running and he'd be off a cliff and he'd be running in midair, and then everything would be fine. But it's only when he realised, he looked down and was like, oh fuck, and then he was. Phew. It was literally like that. I literally felt like I was going from one bit to another running, and then the bridge had gone, and I'm like, I'm just lost now.
So what did that look like on the surface? So emotionally and in your head, that's where you're at. But how did that present itself in your behaviours?
Obviously, I was hot, I was broken, I was sad, and my work and friends saw that and knew that and tried to be there for me. But I also, at the same time, the experience of my dad and sister, they coped with it in their own ways. And unfortunately, that came at the expense of how I had to cope with it. So it was difficult because that feeling of what was the point, who could I tell that to? Who could I say, but I only just told you I was gay and I was so scared that I was going to lose you and now you've gone. And I didn't have anyone to say that to, and I didn't want to bother my sister with that. And because my dad kind of fucked off for a while, I understand his point of view, why he felt pressure and felt alone and abandoned by me and my sister and my mum's family. So I get sort of whatever reason he had to remarry, but I don't get all of it. But yeah, but I remember thinking the only person that, I've told my mum and dad about this. My mum's gone, but my dad's missing now. He's absent. And him and my mum's family are just like that. So I was definitely my mum's family with then all the focus of my uncles and aunties on me with their sister gone and having to just go back in the fucking closet and fucking messed me up. I was like, oh, this is fun. So, not long after that, I decided I had to tell my mum's sisters. One was like, oh, I always knew. And the other one was like, not happy about it. And then over the years, it was a complete fuck up. Everything was a complete fucking head up. It was from 27 till I think early 30s. Obviously I was disconnecting, work was difficult, family was difficult. And then I remember feeling pressure a little bit from one uncle and auntie of mine on my mum's side who, I think long story short, one of my cousins had a wedding, and at weddings everyone is interested in everyone there. And people saw me and knew I was single, and I think did some research. And because I do stuff for gay charities, they found out I was gay. Got back to my uncle, he told my auntie, and my auntie ran me at work saying, oh, just be careful what you put on the internet. Da, da, da. And I was like, what? And then she said it, and then I just flipped it. I was like, I'm so fucking depressed. Like I'm so angry and feel under pressure by all of you. I don't have any family anymore. And that upset her. She said, don't say that. And I said, no, it's true. I don't. Like none of you. I'm just fucking fed up and sick of it. And then she just went quiet, didn't say anything. And then that was it. So that my dad was absent at that point. And if he was there, and again, I understand. I don't. I empathize with his difficulties, but he wasn't the bigger man he should have been, and just stayed there to be like, actually, my son's come out, he needs me. He just, and that's not an excuse, but he just wasn't able to, didn't have the inability to do that. And that's on him, on his conscience. But, he we've made up now and he accepts that he shouldn't have done that. So it's fine, you can't keep going on it. But at that time, what would have helped was if my dad was there, even though my mum's family were at loggerheads, it would have been because with my family, with being like Muslim, sort of that culture, and my grandparents, Punjabi, they emigrated to London in the 60s. So with that hierarchy, we were very British, but it was very much like family sort of tree. So with my dad being at that level, my mum's husband, he would have been the best way and only way that it would field and push away all like my uncles and aunties sort of questions, because each, like all of my cousins, it's their mum and dad that are responsible for them. And same with me and my sister. But with my mum gone, it was like unintentionally or otherwise, they ended up just maybe poking their nose in too much out of concern. And all it would have taken was for my dad to have said, actually, no, stop asking about marriage. He's gay. Yeah. He's told me an imtiaz, and we accepted it. Yes, it was difficult for her. Yes, it was difficult for me, but just, it's not going to happen. So, and that never happened. So that was, and then after that conversation with my auntie, I was like, oh, this is terrible. So Yeah, I started, I developed addiction issues after that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I enjoyed recreational drugs during uni. I never drank, but I luckily never had an issue with drugs, and I was always able to put my career and put my qualifications at the forefront and not let that be stopped by anything.
Yeah.
So I could take a pill, and then a partner would take a couple, and then decide, I said, I'm not going to take a pill anymore. And everyone else would still take the pills. I'm like, no, I'm done. Or be like, okay, well, like it's time to go home now. Like, I didn't have that thing of I'd keep going. I was like, no, I'd cut. So I was very disciplined.
Okay. So
luckily I didn't have the problem with that. And I'm glad, to be honest, that I did have those positive drug experiences, but I was in control, because I think personally drugs should be legalized, and I think there's a hypocrisy about mind altering substances. And actually, if alcohol was found now, it would be banned as a Class A substance. But anyway, that's by the by. What happened in my 30s was I never in my 20s I never took drugs to make me happier. I was already in a good place, and then I would take it maybe to enhance the experience. Whereas so then I didn't take drugs loads, but then I would start to, like, then when I did sort of started, when I continued doing it every now and then in my 30s, my mindset then was completely different.
Yeah.
I was traumatized. I had PTSD. I was bereft. I was disconnected. That's a very dangerous mindset to have when you do drugs, and that's why I started having addiction issues.
Yeah.
So to coke, sex and coke addiction issues really, and a lot of it was, I remember sort of on weekends, like sitting on my sofa alone, feeling massively lonely, and huge, like there's a huge hole in my heart with my mum passing, and my dad and my mum started me not talking, and my sister going AWOL, and I was like, so I'd ring my friends last minute, and obviously they'd always be busy and stuff, and I was like desperate to, and then obviously when I guess with the pain of just, it was too painful to just sit in the pain. So then I was like, my mind just went to like, oh, fuck it, let's go on Grindr, or, let's hook up with a guy, let's get some coke. And then that became a cycle because I was numbing the pain. And then it got quite, I was starting to not care about making healthy sexual choices. And I remember sort of one time having unprotected sex and knowing I shouldn't, but I was like, oh, fuck it. Like there's a little voice in my head, which I still remember. And I was like, I've never said that before. And that's because before I felt my life was worth living. And then I was like, well, what's the point of life? Anyway, so happy to say didn't catch anything. Well, I've caught some stuff that everyone does, but things that can be treated and that you're cured for, but nothing long term. So when I went to the STD clinic, they spoke about sort of that, and spoke about the option to take drugs if I'm having unsafe sex, and I was like, oh no, that's in my head I was like, oh no, that's not me. They were doing their job though, but that made me really think, okay, no, I need to stop this. So I started to get a grip and realised that I can't do that. And so that was when I realised, okay, fine, I do have a problem with this. I need to do what I can to look after myself and manage. So that was like in my mid-30s. And then I was going to say weirdly, but actually no, it makes perfect sense. That was when, in terms of, okay, fine, I'm not doing as much coke, but then my life was just, it felt meaning. I'd go to work, weekends would come, I'd have my tasks to do, tidying, this, that, and the other. I get up, have breakfast, lie on the sofa at like 9:00 a.m. and I'd stay there all day till like 11 p.m. And that kept happening every weekend. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was too depressed. I just didn't want to do anything. And it was painful to do anything. It was painful to having to tidy that bit, it just felt painful. And I was like, I always hated doing this stuff, but I always had the strength to just, give myself a kick up the arse and do it eventually. But now it was like, didn't give a shit. And that was the beginnings of my journey to ADHD, knowing I had ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah. So then how was that diagnosed? I mean, because obviously you've been through everything you've been through. You've now got to a point where you sort of hit rock bottom and every day is sort of Groundhog Day where you can't bring yourself to actually do anything.
Exactly.
So how did you go from that to finding out you had ADHD?
Groundhog Day is a perfect way to describe it. It's literally like that every week, every weekend. And I thought, okay, fine. I'm depressed because of my mum dying, and I went to the GP, and it was a bit too late to have like a specific bereavement counselling that they would offer if someone like passed. I think after a few years they don't offer that or something. So I went to a psychiatrist, talked about depression, talked about my family issues, and the psychiatrist, this Indian guy who had lots of good reviews. I respect that he didn't agree with what my worries were, but in my heart I just felt like he thinks I'm making it more of a problem than it is. And in one sense he's right, but in another sense, if you're not living in that person's family, knowing what they've had to go through with the loss of your mum, and sort of trying to say, oh, you don't need to worry about what your uncles and aunts think or this and that, or maybe, you're imagining that they're feeling this way or you're worried about a situation with that. Well, I'm worried for a reason because of X, Y, and Z happening. Like, this is why. So he suggested taking antidepressants, which I was always against. And then when he described how it helps with talking therapy, I was open to the idea. He gave me the prescription, and then I'm just thinking, nah, I don't want to take it. I thought, no, I would rather, like, I'm always a believer in sorting out problems by talking, by looking at solutions, by doing something, not against the idea of medication, but I just thought that's not it for me. It has to be something that this psychiatrist doesn't understand. So then around not long after that, I left my old job in Catford, went to a job in Stratford, and then it was, again, still struggling with, doing my home admin stuff, and it was a new practice. So was doing okay there and was sort of building my patient base up. And then some of my patients, when you're a dentist, you have to ask everyone about the medical history when they come in the room. And so, and that's the complete medical history. So some of the patients started coming in, and I noticed they had ADHD. And one gentleman in particular was in his 50s. He was like a mad professor, like sort of white middle class, sweet, but a bit like a nicer version of Boris Johnson, basically, if you can imagine that. And then he came in the second time, and I was looking at him, I was like, oh my God, you've got fucking ADHD. That's something I only ever seen teens or like 10-year-olds having. And I was like, oh, do you mind do you mind me asking about your ADHD, because I'm just quite curious. And I wasn't sure I was going to take it. And he was fine. He was like, oh yeah, of course I will. What do you want to know? And I was like, well, I've just never met anyone that, like, I've not met any adults that have ADHD. And then he said he luckily has a good GP now, but for the longest time, or for a while, he was misdiagnosed with as being depressed. Yeah. And he said it wasn't that, and the doctor wasn't getting it. So I went to another doctor, and I'm not sure if this patient felt he had ADHD. I think perhaps, or if the doctor suggested it, but I think it was the doctor that basically was open to the idea, other than the other doctor saying it was depression, of this sounds like, have you heard of ADHD? This could be ADHD. That's something we can explore for you. Right. And he said, since the diagnosis, and I think he was medicated, he said, everything makes sense now. Yeah. Like I wasn't depressed. It was just how I was coping or not coping with things. Yeah. And I understand myself now. And I was literally buzzing when he was saying this. Yeah. Because up until that point, I'd heard about ADHD, and it wasn't anywhere near in the press like it is now. But it was enough as a dentist, as someone medical, that I'd heard about it, and I'd read stuff online. And, you'd see people in cartoons, like sort of like referencing it as a joke. Like, if someone's a bit hyperactive, like certain cartoons, I can't remember that cartoon now. I think there was a squirrel or something that seemed like they had ADHD. It was like over the fence or something. I think it was that anyway. And so I'd sort of read stuff and I'd be like, oh God, sounds like me. I've probably got ADHD.
Yeah.
And the thought went. And then after he said that, I was like, that thought then stayed and it didn't go. And I asked him about sort of, and he basically gave me advice. So, if you, because I said, I think I have it. And he says, you should go to your GP. So went to my NHS GP. And for whatever reason, even though I'm an NHS dentist, the struggle I had, because I hardly go to the doctor, with looking at my doctor, and I already wrote down what the reasons I felt I had were, like cases in life where I'm like this. And they were looking at me like, right, okay, so you think it's this, and this. And I don't know why, but I always felt like I always had sometimes an issue with, away from ADHD, or maybe this is part of it, trying to explain my feelings to someone and I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
And it like not in every situation in life, but sometimes in life when I'm hurting or when I'm feeling something deep about something, if someone doesn't understand it, and how much that affects me when I've opened up and it's just not gone anywhere. Yeah. So I did that to the GP and it kind of felt the same, and that just made me like, it makes me clam up rather than want to ask for help.
Yeah, of course.
So then he did the referral. Like he said, he didn't think it was necessary, but he's happy to do it. And then obviously whoever is in touch with the referrals will get in touch with me. And then one of the other doctors got back a few weeks later and said, oh, so about your ADHD, yeah. This was like in 2016 or 17. One of the doctors got back and said, oh yeah, so about your ADHD, we've done a referral, but unfortunately as an adult, that's not something that we can diagnose for you. And I mentioned I was studying, and I said, oh, but if you're at uni, the education department there can help you. Okay. And of course I was at postgraduate uni, which is quite specialised. It was the Royal College of Surgeons, which is stuff for medicine and dentistry. And it wasn't like a proper undergraduate uni where there's a lot more emphasis and focus and support for people with learning difficulties. With postgraduate, it's almost non-existent. Like there's, other than maybe dyslexia, which people already know about before they start anyway, there's no like, it's like you either do the work or not. If you're struggling, then obviously you're going to get kicked off the course, you're not going to pass. So when she said that, I was like, great. So that was like a no. And then again, another patient came in to work with as his dentist, went through his medical history, and he was like a slightly younger, a bit younger than me, but old enough, had ADHD, and he told me his experience, and he told me which place I should go to have it. So went again to the doctor, was adamant, and then they rang me and they did an assessment of the phone, and weirdly, I mean, I understand their process at the time, but it doesn't make sense given that we now know adult ADHD was officially recognised as something that exists well before I even went to the GPs. They asked me these questions about sort of basically how my life was, and sort of like imminent threat to life questions. So basically, if I'm feeling that low, basically, am I suicidal? Am I thinking of suicide? Am I... And when they're specifically said, so does your ADHD make you feel suicidal? I'm going to tell the truth. I was like, well, it doesn't. And, maybe I should have said, I wish I should have said yes, but I was like, it doesn't. And so, are you thinking of taking it? I was like, well, I'm not. And so I asked the question because it was no. And I was like, well, it's not, because like in my head, I was like, why are you asking? I was like, it's not, but like, why does it have to be suicide level for me to get help? Like, and then I said to her, well, there is something maybe you could help me with. And so I've had OCD since primary school. And then during uni, my OCD turned into like really dark thoughts, or even thoughts that weren't dark, but just more like my head would get stuck in a loop about things that didn't even mean anything, like really like random, like boring stuff. But just my head just feeling like I can't move on from it. And it was so bad that I remember feeling, and I still have it now. I remember feeling like I'm trapped, like literally I feel like no one can understand me. There's this like darkness in my head. And then I remember thinking the only way that this is going to go is if when I die.
Right.
So it didn't make me suicidal, but it made me have those thoughts. So I explained that to her. She said, okay, fine. Well, we can get you referred for CBT for OCD. So had 12 sessions with someone, and my dad came to some of them, which I was happy that he did. Yeah. And he was great. He spoke about, my OCD, and he talked about coping mechanisms and how to cope with it. And then third time I tried for a diagnosis, it was like 2018, 2019. And then was told by the GP then like, oh, sorry you had a bad experience. If you feel you have ADHD, yes, I'm happy to refer you. That was really positive. And then got a phone call back saying, yeah, so, we can't refer you straight away, but we do understand that you might have it. How about having some CBT for ADHD first? Yeah. So the CBT I had for OCD was it was like a year and a half, right, which was online. I had to answer questions. And then after that, I had talking therapy. Okay. So that whole process was like 2 years, maybe at least 2 years. Okay. At that point, when they said that, I was like, I have to do another fucking year and a half of online stuff to just see if I can cope without anything else. And then if they think I need more help, then I'll get talking therapy or get a diagnosis. Yeah. Or after the online session, if they think I've got it, then they'll sort of try and diagnose me, whatever. But at that point, I was like another year and a half, I was like, I might as well kill myself. Like, what's the fucking point? Right. Like, I can't do that again. Yeah. And then that was in 2021. And having tried for years, and then I was like, fuck it, I'll just go private. So I went privately, and luckily I had Bupa insurance, which they only looked at acute and severe mental health issues. So again, it's that same thing of like, well, it's not making me suicidal, but the person on the phone was great. He understood what would be what he understood the things that if I said would allow me to get funding, and the things if I said which wouldn't. And so he sort of said, oh, it sounds like you feel like this because you've not been diagnosed well, and it's causing this kind of pressure. And I was like, yeah. So he was really supportive. And so I think like, you have to fulfill certain criteria if you do get funding for that. So they funded they funded the initial referral, and they funded the assessment. Okay. So that was like a half-hour screener in 2021. And then by the end of 21, I had the early 22, I had the final assessment online with my dad, which was about 2.5 hours. Okay. And then I got the diagnosis when I was 41. And yeah. Wow.
You know what, like just listening to everything that you've just said then, like, I couldn't imagine, just like everybody has their own story, has their own background and stuff. But to sit down and share that and be as brave as you have and go through everything with such raw emotion, like generally from the bottom of my heart, thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're most welcome. I that's very kind of you to say that. And I, you invited me to do this, which I really, I don't take lightly. And for me, it's like, the only way I can respect that is just by not holding back and just like sort of warts and all. There's no point in me just hiding anything.
Yeah, of course.
And also, I hope it just. The reason for wanting to just be honest is also to, people are so scared in society of being judged. The society is so closed-minded about everything. Even people in the medical dental profession a lot of them don't even think even ADHD even exists. And there's such a bad stigma of ADHD, and with everyone now sort of getting tired of ADHD because they feel it's being talked about too much, which really pisses me off about the government. Yeah. So me saying this basically shows people, yes, ADHD does fucking exist. Yep. And yes, it doesn't look like what you think it looks like.
100%.
And yes, you can have it for years and not realize you've got it.
100%.
And yes, it causes lots of things that you never realized in your life until you've got it.
100%. So fantastic. So we've got to that part in the podcast now where we give back to the viewers and the listeners.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, if there was anything that you could say to the old you or somebody that's just realised they've got ADHD and is struggling, what would that be?
So if anyone could say anything to the older me now, or anyone else who's older, who's sort of struggling, what advice? So I would, like, first of all, I'd say go to your GP. And I know people have mixed experiences with that, but keep a logbook of the reasons why you think you have it. So, and in different circumstances. So it could be work, it could be education, it could be life, it could be personal stuff, it could be going out, socializing, whether it's on your phone, things that you find difficult and makes you think you've got ADHD, write that down, and the environment that you're in. Because for me, I tried to do that, even though it wasn't really successful at the beginning, but at the very least then that it like you can't go wrong after you write that down, because it supports you. And then that way, because a lot of doctors don't understand a lot about ADHD, by saying those things, it will help make them understand. So that's my first advice. And if you go to your GP and they don't accept it, then if you can, and this is the ironic thing with ADHD, you're just fucking exhausted all the time. So having to fucking get, like, the irony of trying to get a fucking diagnosis, and literally like bending over backwards to get it. So if first GP doesn't work, just, really be adamant, either complain or just say you want to speak to another GP. And then if that doesn't work, my advice would be go private. Even if I had my private healthcare, which I have to pay quite a lot of money anyway monthly, but if I didn't have that, I would just put money aside and pay for it privately. I say, if you believe you have it, get a private diagnosis. And there's a lot of ADHD information out there, which is overwhelming for everyone. And it's really hard to, we're in an age where there's just information overload with everything. But one organization that really helped me, which I think is still great now, is ADHD UK. So they're a great charity that gives advice, focuses on facts. They're really positive, and they have several Zoom sessions every week where you can attend anonymously and listen to other people from around the world, around the country, asking questions to a particular expert on that session. And then you can learn from people asking questions. And if you feel like asking a question, you can put your hand up and ask, but you can stay anonymous as well. So that, while you're waiting for a diagnosis, is perfect. You might have to give like a nominal, like £5, or because it's a charity, they ask for a donation. But that is, it's online support and it's across the country. That I definitely recommend.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For sharing your story. It really means a lot. And thanks for the advice.
Bless you. Thank you. And thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure doing it with you. And I hope it helps. I hope it helps people.
Guys, remember to like and subscribe. And if you felt that information that we just shared was value for anybody else, please share it. By doing things like that, it helps us make more episodes like this. Till the next one.